I'm especially pleased that not only do we have our keynoter from Warby Parker here, but we also have one of the key individuals who's responsible for doing the Changemaker set of courses, and that is Rich Lyons, who's the Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer. If you would allow me, I know you don't see us very large, but I thought it'd be helpful for me to remind you all what we're going to be covering today. We have an opportunity to talk for just a few minutes with Rich, who will give us a little bit of background on some entrepreneurship and the path, journey of innovation at UC Berkeley. And then it's all about Dave Gilboa. And Nietzsche will be introducing Dave. The objective is to have the talk, and then at around 6 o'clock, shift over to moderated Q&A. So please get your questions ready, ideally in the Q&A versus the chat. Always happy to see the chat as well. I will also make sure that we have the closed captions so that you all can understand all of us better. Forgive me for not having that yet. The live transcript, I'll enable that, and then we'll post the quiz at 6:25. So in a kind of a break with tradition, let me first introduce our moderator. And if I can do everything at the same time, Rich, I'm actually going to spotlight you, if you don't mind. If I can do this. I think I've done that. Rich Lyons, in case you all don't know, is our Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer. And just this year, he received the Excellence in Management Award, but he wasn't always in that huge position. He actually, just like everybody here, most everybody here, started at UC Berkeley, focusing on finance, graduating with highest honors, then went on to get his PhD at MIT, was on the faculty at Columbia, New York, Chief Learning Officer at Goldman Sachs. And then he started teaching at Haas since 1993. That's a pretty long time. In being a professor, again, a lot of acclaim, Teacher of the Year, Career Teaching Awards, authored a book called The Microstructure Approach to Exchange Rates, which if you're in finance, I'm sure is fascinating. And then became acting dean of Haas and then full dean for 10 years, 2008 to 2018. Something that you may not know, you can tell he has an incredible finance background, but he has an incredible head for marketing and for galvanizing people. And during his tenure, UC Berkeley Haas created a four-part mission statement, for lack of a better word. And it's something that I heard the first time I met Rich when he was playing his guitar and singing, which I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot believe a dean is doing this. But he met me and he stuck a card in my hand. And I don't know if anybody else knows those 4 principles, but it is confidence without attitude. It is beyond yourself, question the status quo, and something that I always keep with me, and that is student always. So thank you for that, Rich, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vicki.
Rich, you were going to kind of set the stage. You have been around for a number of decades and seen a lot in what's been happening in entrepreneurship and innovation at Cal. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, thanks. I'll just do a little of this because I know we all want to hear from Dave and talk to Dave. A little bit of perspective. Some of it dates back to exactly when Dave was here in your shoes. I was here as an undergrad, as Vicki mentioned, a little bit earlier than Dave. But so I'm gonna share my screen here and just show you a couple of quick slides. I won't run through a lot here, but here's a picture of the ecosystem as we call it at Berkeley. What is this innovation and entrepreneur? So it's a time lapse. Don't worry about the details. Think about this as just impressionistic. But in the year 2000, so Dave was finishing his sophomore year in the year 2000. We had an I&E being innovation and entrepreneurship. We had an ecosystem back then. There was a business plan competition at the business school. There was a global social venture competition and a few other things. QB3, the Institute for Quantitative Biology. You can see Berkeley bioengineering. In general, we don't put departments on a chart like this, but bioengineering, which started right, we'll get into this with Dave, it started right about when Dave arrived, is a department at Berkeley and was a department at Berkeley. It was very, very innovation and entrepreneurship oriented right from the get-go. So that was one of the earliest elements. Anyways, there aren't very many things on that chart. Here's what it looked like in 2005. I'm not going to go through any more, examples. Big Ideas is on there for those of you that know Big Ideas, but there are many other elements on there, but it was still sparse. 2010, wow, even more things going on in 2010. Up in the top line there, you can see MTM, a master's in translational medicine. Okay, so there's some more things on here. 2015, it's starting to get a little bit crowded. And here it is today, and literally we are adding icons to this every month. It is just extraordinary how quickly this is evolving. Again, I won't walk you through all of this, but the ecosystem looks a lot different than when Dave was here as an undergrad. And Dave did a terrific job of navigating what was here. We also put together a slide just so you have it. By the way, this slide deck, I'll put a link to it in the chat. This slide deck is on the public website, so I'll give you the link to these slides if you're interested. Student and alumni groups today, there are many of them. I won't even walk you through examples. There are many, and it changes. It's a very dynamic environment. So I'll stop sharing there. But that's a little bit of perspective on this innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem that is serving Berkeley so well. So let me turn to Dave and just say that the university is proud of you, Dave, and all that you and your classmates at Penn have developed at Warby Parker and many other things that you've done in your life. So it's a treat for me to be able to interview you. So why don't we start with kind of the obvious question?
Wait, can I just start with something?
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind if Nitya, who I know these students give the best introductions?
I'm sorry, of course. Please, Nitya, over to you. Thanks for stopping me. Yep.
Okay, amazing. But yeah, thank you so much, Rich, for giving us like such a great overview of all like the entrepreneurship resources. But right now I'm a freshman at UC Berkeley, interested in computer science. And I'm super excited to introduce Dave Gilboa today, because I actually was a customer, as like we were talking about before. And I learned about Warby Parker a couple years ago after I realized that I needed glasses. And after like using the site, what's cool about Warby Parker is it's not just affordable glasses, but there's also this aspect that when you get your pair of glasses, another pair is given to someone with impaired vision who doesn't necessarily have the means to get glasses. So Dave, like all of us, started off as Cal, graduating with a degree in bioengineering. And then after Cal, he started interning at a consulting company, Bain & Co., and then kind of returned to a more medical space as an associate at Allen & Company, where we could work on a healthcare initiative. And so Dave was all set to do his MBA at Wharton, but before that, he backpacked around the world and ended up losing his glasses, which was somewhat serendipitous, because later he realized that glasses are actually super expensive to replace. And that kind of snowballed into him co-founding Warby Parker. And 12 years later, right now, Warby Parker has distributed over 10 million eyeglasses through the Buy a Pair, Give a Pair program, and is valued at $3 billion, and has even launched multiple initiatives to help kids and adults alike get proper vision care more accessibly. So thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to talk about your journey, and super excited to hear more.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you both for that intro. Excited to be here, and yeah, I owe really kind of everything in my career to the foundation that was built at Cal, and yeah, just super excited to be kind of reconnecting with some of you folks on campus, and looking at some of the slides made me both feel old and also jealous of all the resources and all the amazing programs and connectivity that exists for students. So yeah, just excited to be here chatting tonight.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, and thanks, Nitya. So when we think about your coming to Berkeley and as I mentioned, the bioengineering as an undergraduate degree. So you're arriving at Berkeley, you're a freshman, you're kind of thinking about, I mean, did you know what you wanted to study? What did it feel like when you arrived?
Yeah, so I guess maybe rewinding a bit, I grew up the son of two doctors, and I think they did a great job of brainwashing me early on into thinking that was, being a doctor was kind of the only possible career path for me. I was always independently of that. I was kind of really always fascinated by how the body worked and kind of all aspects of science. And so kind of came to campus knowing that I wanted to take all the pre-med classes and kind of maybe fulfill that destiny of becoming a doctor. And I learned that there was this new major that I had the opportunity to be part of the second class ever. So there wasn't much history around it, but there was this new department that was forming bioengineering that was kind of multidisciplinary, where you take all the pre-med classes, but also get exposure to lots of other disciplines kind of within the world of engineering and biology and kind of all aspects that were just kind of topics that I was curious about. And so it seemed like a really interesting opportunity to just learn, and still thought that I was gonna become a doctor. Ended up taking the MCAT and kind of started applying to med school and was kind of all set to fulfill that destiny. And then during that time there were some pretty major events that were happening in the economy, especially kind of in the Bay Area. So I was a freshman in '99, so kind of peak internet 1.0 bubble, and Berkeley was kind of right at the center of that. And during my 4 years at Cal, that completely blew up. And there was just kind of a lot of volatility and uncertainty in the economy in general, not dissimilar to kind of what the situation feels like today. But there were also some big changes that were happening within the world of healthcare, namely kind of managed care and HMOs were starting to take over large parts of the healthcare industry. And talking to my parents and their friends who were doctors, they were maybe disillusioned is kind of the word to describe how they felt about the kind of the changes that were happening. A lot of them talked about the good old days when they could really kind of focus on treating patients and not have to deal with the bureaucracy that was setting into a lot of healthcare organizations. And simultaneously, a few of my friends that I met at Cal were taking jobs within the world of consulting and finance, and going to places like McKinsey and BCG and Bain and Goldman and Morgan Stanley. And they were saying like, hey, to get these jobs, they're just really looking for really smart, capable people. You actually don't have to, it's not a requirement that you've taken all these business classes to get jobs with these firms. And I realized that kind of for the first time, my aperture was opened a bit wider, was still really focused on doing something to make the world better and help people, but kind of for the first time realized that there was another path other than being a practicing physician, and that leading an organization or working for a company that helped improve people's lives or made the world better was kind of another option or another path that could enable me to kind of operate with those same values that doctors do, but potentially operate at a much bigger scale. And recognizing that I didn't know anything about business at the time, thought getting an trying to get an internship might be a great place to start. So I applied to some consulting firms, got an internship at Bain for the summer between my junior and senior year. Really loved the experience, loved the people that I worked with, learned a ton. And then ended up kind of much to the disappointment of my parents, decided to take a full-time offer with them. Yeah, just kind of veered left and thought that, yeah, kind of learn as much as I could about kind of business and management for kind of the next chapter or two out of college, and then hopefully do something to kind of combine that passion around healthcare and with some of those business skills, and then kind of do something really impactful from there.
It's great. It's a great storyline. I'm just going to drill down on one little spot there, if you don't mind, where you said, to your parents' chagrin. Did your parents come around? Because it's not easy to do what one's parents, wouldn't select for them.
I think they're still hoping that I'll go back to med school one day. At first I told them that, hey, my MCAT scores are good for 5 years. And so just because I'm not going now doesn't mean that I'm never going to go. I think they've, finally come to terms that that I'm not going to be a doctor, but now at Warby, we can get to this later. We're investing a lot into becoming more of a holistic vision care provider. This year, we're hiring a couple hundred eye doctors, investing really heavily in telemedicine. And so maybe it's been a circuitous route to get back to kind of that initial path that I was on.
Yeah. Well, this is my own bias, but my field is actually economics. And so when I kind of hear the story that you're telling, you talk about managed care and your parents' experience and so forth. But, in some ways, those are economic phenomena, right? This is an industry that's trying to kind of find a more sensible place, and it does it in fits and starts like every other industry. And it could be that sort of intuitively you were starting to see some economic themes that were kind of interesting, or starting to pique your interest intellectually and practically, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever take an economics class at Berkeley, for example?
I did. I ended up taking, so I had a pretty full schedule with the bioengineering curriculum, but with a couple of my electives, I did take some classes at Haas, and I was just kind of really interested to understand, kind of economic phenomenon and how organizations operate, and kind of some management principles, and thought that would be just kind of a useful base knowledge, regardless of what I want to do at a later stage.
Yeah. Well, one of the themes of this course, this notion of change making in a very Berkeley way, which we'll get to more as we speak later. But part of in terms of kind of the skill sets, the critical thinking, and part of that is opportunity recognition, right? It's like you're thinking critically about, wait a minute, why was it so? And we'll get to the story later, but I understand you lost your glasses and had quite an experience having lost glasses, and thought, now wait a minute. So that critical thinking mindset, ultimately, you're a terrific communicator, but you also had to sort of connect your vision to investors and many, many other people. And then a third content pillar of this Berkeley Changemaker effort is the collaboration. I mean, you get your life's best work done by working through and with other people, not as an individual contributor. And you seem to have mastered all those things. So let me though take that next step. So then you decide, I think, at some point that finance wasn't what you wanted to do, and then you went to grad school. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Sure. So I worked at Bain for 3 years, had a really tremendous experience there. Still, very close with a lot of my colleagues. Actually, a lot of our first hires at Warby Parker came from Bain, because I was so impressed with kind of the way that they recruit and develop talent there. But I also realized that I didn't want to be a management consultant for the rest of my life. Bain's model is very much a generalist one. And so, I still had this passion for healthcare and wanted to figure out if there was a path that I could connect kind of some, business skills in a more specialized setting around kind of healthcare. And I actually had two opportunities after that. One was to move to Uganda, to Kampala, and become the country director for the Clinton Pediatric HIV/AIDS Initiative.
Wow.
And the other was to move to New York and work for an investment bank, Allen and Company, that had kind of a really strong foundation around media and tech companies, but they were building a small team to kind of found their healthcare practice. And the two opportunities were so diametrically opposed from one another that I started to try to kind of make lists of pros and cons and realized like that they were really, there was no way to compare the opportunities. And so I ended up flipping a coin and ended up moving to New York, taking the job at Allen and Co. Actually, another friend of mine who I worked with at Bain took the job in Uganda. And after 2 years, both of us went to business school and ended up in startups. And moved to New York, worked in finance for a while. I also learned a ton, but realized I kind of didn't want to stay in financial services forever. And I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs to help them raise money and invest in their businesses, and realized that I thought what they were doing was more interesting than what I was doing. And so I decided to go back to school and got into a dual degree program at Penn to get my MBA at Wharton and get a master's of bioengineering at the engineering school at Penn, and took 6 months off to travel in between my last day at Allen and Company and when I was starting grad school. Handed in my company issued BlackBerry, which again shows my age here. And I backpacked around the world for about 6 months, just living in hostels. Didn't have a phone for 6 months, and came back to the US, and kind of along the way on that trip, I'd lost my only pair of glasses. And I came back to the US, I had to buy two things. One was a new phone, and the other was a pair of glasses. Went to the Apple store. The iPhone 3G had just come out, which I bought for $200, which after not having a phone for a few months and having a BlackBerry before that, was this incredibly magical device that paid a couple $100 for, and then realized that my new glasses were going to cost me $700. And all right, the technology in a pair of glasses is 800 years old. There's nothing in the cost of goods that should justify higher prices than kind of a new supercomputer that fits in your pocket. And so started complaining to anyone who would listen about, it didn't make any sense to me why glasses were so expensive. And that included my new classmates at Wharton, and realized that there were a lot of other frustrated consumers, including some of my friends who ended up becoming my co-founder. So Andy had been wondering why no one was selling glasses online. This was in 2008. The world looked very different back then. Amazon wasn't kind of the behemoth that it is today, but there were lots of companies that were selling products online for the first time, and showing that you could do it well, from Zappos selling shoes, Blue Nile selling engagement rings, diapers.com selling household items. But no one was really selling glasses online. So we started chatting about it. And then one of my other co-founders, now my co-CEO, Neil, who was also our classmate, he had spent 5 years before business school running this great nonprofit called Vision Spring, where they would go into some of the poorest regions around the world, where people didn't have access to eye doctors or glasses. They would train locals to administer vision tests, and then they would provide subsidized glasses into those communities, primarily people living on less than $4 a day. And through this work, he had been to factories to produce their own glasses, and they were producing glasses for some of the poorest people on earth, and the same production lines as the pair of glasses that I had just bought for hundreds of dollars. And so we got together, and kind of the spark went off that there was this massive industry that didn't make sense to us. There had been really very little innovation on the product side or distribution side. And we thought we could do better. And all of us on the founding team were also really motivated to create an organization that did something good in the world, and make sure that if we were going to spend all our time kind of investing our energy into something, that it should have impact. And through Neil's work at Vision Spring, pretty quickly realized that vision impairment is a massive problem around the world, that there are 2.5 billion people who need glasses or corrective lenses and don't have access to them. And giving someone a pair of glasses is one of the most effective poverty alleviation tools in the world, and has been proven to increase income by 20 to 35%. And so kind of all those elements together cause us to really want to invest our time and energy into seeing if there was a business opportunity. And then we were in business school and said, why don't we take kind of our life savings up until this point, and see if we can kind of create something. And that was really the initial seed that led to us launching Warby Parker.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hey, I heard a phrase today. I mean, there's scaling for economics and there's scaling for purpose. I heard this phrase, scaling for purpose, and you had so much of that scaling for purpose energy, even in your early thinking, right? That it's, there were just a lot of people who were economically left out of this market, and people whose lives would be greatly advantaged. Anyways, I'm just re-saying what you said, but I think that idea that you've got this purpose wave behind you is, as well as a wonderful economic story, right? It's super powerful. Hey, what year was it roughly? When did you found?
So we launched in 2010.
2010. So the economic crisis, the downturn, Lehman Brothers, 2008 and 2009 were very disrupted economically. By 2010, people were starting to feel like, all right, we're getting our sea legs back, right?
Yeah, it was also kind of an interesting time in the economy. Had been working in finance and kind of the go-go days, and then it was more luck than anything else that decided to quit and go to school, just kind of as the financial world was falling apart. And I think we were able to benefit from a lot of the economic dislocation that was happening. So we launched out of our apartments while we were full-time students, and immediately from day one, kind of overshot our sales expectations by an order of magnitude. We hit our first year sales targets in 3 weeks. We sold out of all of our inventory, had a wait list of 20,000 customers, and we were scrambling to hire people just to keep up with orders. And we put ads on Craigslist, and we're able to attract just really talented people, including like one of our first hires who now leads, who's our VP of growth. He responded to an ad on Craigslist. He'd been working for a hedge fund that blew up, and he moved back in with his parents and was just kind of interested in trying something different. And so I think, during periods of economic headwinds or volatility, there's generally a lot of great talent that's available, and it is often kind of the best period to start businesses and take advantage of opportunity.
Yeah. And I'd imagine at the same time, I mean, you had, again, a great economic proposition, but how you got a number of these great people was partly, maybe in large part, that purpose story, right? It's like, look what we could do together. Look where we're headed, right? So I just want to underline how important as a talent strategy, purpose can be. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, again, doing something impactful, if we were going to invest, whether it was, weeks, months, hopefully years and decades into something, we wanted to make sure that it was, an activity that would really help make the world better and have a lot of impact. And we're really big believers that business can be a force for good, and that having a social mission embedded in your business is an opportunity to kind of create a better model where you're able to attract and retain better talent, who and that talent feels more connected, is driven to create impact, because they understand that their work means something, and they're not just there to collect a paycheck. Every single person at Warby Parker could make more money working somewhere else. We think we pay kind of market rates, but we're able to attract and retain A+ talent. And many of our earliest employees who we hired in 2010 are still with the company in new and much bigger roles. And they're motivated to help us scale because they understand kind of the importance of their work. And we've now been able to distribute well over 10 million pairs of glasses to people in need around the world. We're starting programs in various cities around the US. And that's just hugely motivating and helps us attract that talent, which then in turns makes a better business.
Yeah. And thanks for that. I want to also get to a theme of the whole semester for this wonderful course, creating constructive conflict. But there are a couple of student questions. I'd like to jump over to those, and then I've got a few more of my own, and then we'll have plenty of time for students. So I'll take both of the student questions there. First, how did Warby Parker do during the pandemic, the most recent period?
It's been a really interesting, challenging period for I think every business or every organization, and Warby Parker is not any different. When the pandemic hit in early 2020, one of the big decisions we had to make was we had 120 stores. We had over 2,000 employees that worked in stores. And there was this virus that had so much uncertainty around how it spread. We didn't know much about it, but we didn't feel comfortable continuing to operate those stores. And we wanted to make sure that no matter what, the safe healthcare and safety of our employees and our customers came first. And so we shut down all of those stores. We told our teams that we were going to make sure that they were paid, but just faced extreme uncertainty. And so, lots of really challenging, new, unique decisions and situations that we've had to make since then. But what we found is that we fared much better than anyone else in our category. And part of that is because we've always had an omni-channel model. And so most of our peers who are large optical retailers don't have an e-commerce offering. They don't have a telemedicine offering. So they couldn't serve when they had to shut down their stores, when they had to shut down their offices, they weren't able to serve customers. And so pretty quickly after kind of, our entire industry shut down, we saw a massive surge in demand from e-commerce customers for our telemedicine app. And we scrambled to then reallocate our retail team members to serve those e-commerce customers. We hired lots of people, and we felt it was kind of our duty to maintain continuity in our operations so that we could serve customers and get them critical eye care and eyewear that they needed to see. And say that pattern has held true over the last couple of years, where there have just been massive swings in demand and lots of volatility in a category that is usually very steady and predictable. And because of our investments in technology, our investments in customer service, and our flexibility and agility have enabled us to, I'd say, operate in a more flexible and agile manner relative to the rest of our category, but it's certainly been a stressful period for us as well.
Oh boy, and you were coming into it obviously with quite a bit of strength. You weren't a 1-year-old company when it hit. But anyways, the challenges were huge for everybody. So this is a little bit more technical a question, but your philosophy around user interface design, when you thought about that very front end and your digital presentation to the marketplace, was that something you had a lot of input on, or was that mostly other people on your team?
Yeah, it was something, certainly as a founder, you're kind of especially in the early days, you're kind of doing everything, and designing the website was certainly one of my responsibilities. I'd never designed a website before. I didn't know how to use back then it was Adobe Illustrator, now kind of Figma and Canva, and but coming from the world of consulting and finance, I knew how to use PowerPoint really well, and so designed our original website in PowerPoint, and then just printed out a bunch of pages, basically our initial wireframes, and had a stack of about 50 pages. And I would go to the local Starbucks. This was when we were students in Philadelphia, see people online, ask if I would buy them their latte, if they would take a few minutes and just kind of help me with a research project. And I'd put the first page in front of them and say, imagine this is a homepage on a website and your hand is the mouse. Where would you click? And they'd point somewhere, and then I'd shuffle through the pages and kind of put the page that they clicked on, and then get their feedback on what was intuitive, what questions they had, and really our goal was to create both an efficient but also a delightful experience for users, and recognize that we were selling a product that 99.99% of our customers had never bought online before, and so this was going to be a new experience for them, and we had to convey trust, but also wanted to ensure that our brand tenets around fun, creativity, doing good in the world kind of came through in that web design, and hopefully that is still the case today. But now we have kind of a big team that's focused on that. Mm-hmm. I'm still very much involved as we roll out new features and kind of periodic reviews around our UX. But probably fortunately for everyone involved, not involved in too far in the weeds and the nitty-gritty these days.
Oh, it's great. Well, thanks. And you obviously, you have a passion for many things, but also, what the identity, right? The presentation of what the company stands for. You had that, and the team had it in their minds from the get-go. I'm going to go back a little bit. When you lost your glasses and you thought this is crazy, were you in a phase of your life where you were sort of like, I'm looking for opportunities no matter where I find them? I mean, were you kind of being super intentional about where's, they call it in the jargon of entrepreneurship, opportunity recognition? Were you in a total opportunity recognition phase, or was this just something like, a coconut hits you on the head? It's like, oh my gosh.
I'd say it's probably somewhere in between. I was in, I had made the decision to kind of quit a pretty high-paying job, and I was going to take a couple years to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I didn't have any real preconceived notions around what that would look like. And so in that vein, I was certainly kind of approaching grad school with somewhat of a blank slate. But I wasn't, I wasn't intent on starting a business. I thought that was a pretty low likelihood. I was kind of thought that a more likely scenario would be that, I would join some early stage team that was kind of already building something, or there were some really smart scientists that could use kind of a business person to help them commercialize something. And so, it's not like I was kind of sifting through a bunch of ideas and said that, I was going to start something. It was more just a happy accident that, I lost these glasses, and then that caused me to ask a bunch of questions and realize that there was this massive industry that was, really had no innovation, was controlled by one large company. And we thought that we could create something different, and being in business school, had sort of the freedom and the time to explore kind of what that might look like. And so, if I was still working in finance or working in strategy consulting and, working 70, 80 hours a week, probably wouldn't have much time to think about it. But being in school, had the opportunity to kind of, take some classes where, the output was a business plan, could, use some of my electives to kind of explore this further. And so it was, I think every kind of successful venture has a lot of, luck involved, but it's, I think, a requirement that once good luck falls your way, that you have to take advantage of it. And I think, I was kind of in a position to do that being a student.
Yeah, it's a great way to describe it, and of course, the students that are part of this course, I put that ecosystem up there, just a quick, taking advantage of the degrees of freedom or the opportunities that one has. One thing that a lot of our undergrads don't know, although I'll bet a much larger fraction of the students in this course do, Skydeck has an internship program where they actually place 800 undergraduates a year in internships and startups. And it is really, it's called the ACE program, Accelerating Careers in Entrepreneurship, right? And it's sort of like, wow, I mean, undergrads, all of us have a ton of things going on, but there's some slices of that ecosystem where it's like, boy, if you're here and you have any bandwidth, it's like, do it, take advantage of some of this stuff. And you are obviously doing the same. Hey, there are a number of good questions. I want to make sure students have a chance to ask their own questions, but let me ask, there's one question that popped up that I find especially interesting as an economist. So there's a famous economist called Schumpeter, and Schumpeter coined a phrase, I think it was his phrase, creative destruction. That when we create in an economy, usually there's somebody on the other side of that creation or an entity on the other side of that creation, right? And so the question that's posed here is, there are optometrists out there that used to make a little money and be able to charge a little margin on glasses. And so who are the people on the losers, if you will, the people that are on the other side of what was on balance a positive disruption?
Yeah, there are probably two categories. So the first, kind of the one really large company in the category that is an order of magnitude larger than anyone else in the space, is a company most consumers have not heard of, called EssilorLuxottica. But they own or control kind of most brands that people associate with eyewear. So they own Ray-Ban, Oakley, Oliver Peoples, Persol, Arnett. They exclusively license, design, manufacture, and sell all the eyewear for most major fashion labels: Chanel, Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, Ralph Lauren, Versace. They own most optical retail chains that people are familiar with: LensCrafters, Pearl Vision, Sunglass Hut, Target Optical, Sears Optical, Macy's Optical, have well over 15,000 stores. They own iMed, which is the second largest vision insurance plan in the country, and powers the vision insurance for Aetna and a lot of other insurance carriers. They're the largest lens manufacturer in the world. They're the largest optical lab company in the world. And so they've done a great job of creating this illusion of choice for consumers, where if you walk into a LensCrafters or Sunglass Hut, you see 50 different brands of glasses. All those brands are owned by the same company that owns the store that you're standing in, that owns the vision insurance plan you're using to pay for those glasses. And as a result, there really has been extremely little competition in the space, which leads to high prices, high margins, poor customer service. There's really kind of very little motivation to do things differently. And as a result, most classes in the US are marked up 10 to 20 times what they cost to manufacture.
Wow.
And again, this is technology that's been around for 800 years with very little innovation around it. And also, there's been no innovation on the distribution side. So when we launched, less than 1% of prescription glasses in the US were sold online. And that is probably the lowest category of online penetration out of any consumer good. And so we thought there was an opportunity to kind of do things differently. And so as we scale, we expect that kind of those large chains and large brands that are all owned by Estée Lauder Exotica, that, over time that they'll kind of feel some pain and that we'll be able to take some of their share. The other part of the industry that is a bit unique is that optometry is the only part of human medicine where doctors can sell what they're prescribing. So if you go to a medical doctor, they write you a prescription for Lipitor or Adderall or some other drug, you're not buying that drug from the doctor. You're going to independent third-party pharmacy. The doctor's not making margin on what they're prescribing to you. But within the world of optometry, it's the opposite. So doctors will write you a prescription and then they all have their own shop. So they kind of force you to exit through the gift shop and they pressure you into buying overpriced glasses and contacts and make most of their income from selling glasses and contacts. And so there are lots of independent optometrists who they're eye doctors, but they also run kind of a little retail store as well. And some of these practices are run really efficiently, but there are others where it's a doctor who's really good at serving patients, and there's not as much efficiency on the retail side, and especially in the pandemic. When a lot of these independent practices that don't have big balance sheets, they don't have an e-commerce presence, they don't have telemedicine capabilities, they weren't able to serve customers. I think a lot of those independent optometrists realized that, hey, what they really want to do is serve patients, and kind of running the other parts of this business are pretty complex. And so what we've seen is that a lot of those independents are deciding to kind of shutter their own businesses and join firms like Warby Parker. So and now we have 200 stores, and every one of our stores we're adding optometrists and hiring those doctors and enabling them to kind of serve patients without having to kind of worry about the sales process around the other products and services. And so, I think over time, we expect to see some of those large legacy kind of retailers that haven't focused on innovation to kind of start to suffer, and expect that there will be kind of a continued shift away from independent optometrists towards larger practices.
Yeah, hey, thanks for that great perspective. And also on that first element, right? The idea of many brands, seemingly lots of competition, and in fact, it rolls up to pretty concentrated decision making, right? And we often, when we think about sort of pricing power or monopolistic power in the jargon of economics, right? It's much less evident than in fact it is, because it does feel like, oh my gosh, there are thousands of brands. Yeah, but almost all of them, or many of them, as you pointed out, under the same umbrella. Hey, there are a lot of great, if we're right at 6 o'clock, which is student hour, and I want to make sure the students can ask some questions. I can continue to ask a few of them, but there are many really good ones. So Vicki, how should we get the students direct in?
We're pulling them in. Actually, Artem and Sukriti, I've been texting you. Are you all waiting for students? And if so, we can go ahead and ask questions. Well, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and start to bring some students in. They're being promoted to panelists, and so we should be able to see them soon. And there we go, I think. And I think we had Lucas in, so I apologize. Do you want to ask a question while I'm pulling
Sure.
some students on
Let me do that. Here's one question that links to kind of the way we teach entrepreneurship these days. What were some memorable pivots you made in the early stages of Warby Parker?
Yes, probably the most significant one is that we launched selling glasses online, and we did that for a couple of reasons. One is that we bootstrapped the business. We didn't have any capital. We didn't have a balance sheet. No landlord in their right mind would let us sign a lease because we just had no financial worthiness. And we also recognized that it was kind of we could leverage the power of the internet to reach customers across the entire US all at once. And so but we also realized that most people are used to trying glasses on before they shop, and so the concept of purchasing prescription glasses online was pretty daunting to most consumers, and so we came up with this program that we call the Home Try-On, which we still offer, where you can go on our site, select any 5 frames, we'll send them to you for free, and include a free return shipping label, see which frames you like, send them all back to us along with your prescription, and we'll go ahead and make you a custom prescription pair. And we did that because we really believed in the quality of our product. We just wanted to get as many glasses on people's faces as possible. And we also realized that making a pair of prescription glasses, it's a unique custom product. And so if someone returns it, it's really expensive for us. And so this was a way that we could reduce our return rate. And we thought this was a pretty good idea, but had no idea how consumers would respond. When we launched, I had my phone set up where every order I would get a notification on my phone, and we were kind of working on our website, trying to squash as many bugs as we could until like 4 a.m. The night before we launched. We ended up having these great features in GQ and Vogue, and I was sitting in class the next day, and my phone started buzzing, and I got really excited, and I emailed my co-founders that we got our first order, and then 10 minutes later got another buzz, and then another buzz, and another buzz, and realized by the end of that first class that we had taken more orders than we had inventory for. We hadn't built any sold out functionality into our website. That was never a feature that we even discussed or contemplated we would need, but all of a sudden we put up this wait list. We had a wait list of over 20,000 customers. Wow. And then we started getting calls from people saying, hey, I just read about you in GQ, want to try on your glasses, there's a massive waiting list, can I come to your store or your office? And we said, well, the store and the office is my apartment, but come on over, and had kind of strangers coming into our apartments. I think Philly had the second highest murder rate in the country at the time. But we found that people loved the experience, meeting the people behind the brand. And we learned so much from those face-to-face interactions with our customers, that when we then graduated a couple of months later, we moved to New York. We had our office on the 6th floor of a commercial building. We decided to dedicate kind of a couple hundred square feet to what we called a customer showroom. It was really a couple West Elm tables with 2 computers that were set up to our homepage. So the checkout, people had to go through kind of the full e-commerce checkout. All of a sudden we were getting dozens and then hundreds of customers a day into that space, doing millions of dollars in revenue. And we bought an old yellow school bus that we gutted, and put shelving in the back of it, and had some of our customer service employees just drive around the country, and wherever they stopped, we would have a pop-up shop there. And found that wherever we had a physical presence, customers loved it. We learned so much from those experiences. It built brand awareness. It created this halo for our e-commerce business. And so then that gave us the confidence to sign our first lease for our store in Soho. next to the Apple store and around the corner from Ralph Lauren. And now fast forward, we have, well, by the end of this year, we'll have over 200 stores. The majority of our sales take place in those stores. And so, I think it kind of surprised some of our early investors who were invested behind kind of this idea that you could sell glasses online and that e-commerce was the future. And to them, it might have felt like a quick pivot. But for us, there were all these stages of learning. And I think, a lesson that we've taken to heart is that, nothing should feel like there's a major decision where you have to jump off a cliff and you have no idea kind of if you're going to land or not. If that's the case, figure out, is there kind of a path where you can take a couple steps down the side of the cliff, and you can lower yourself down so that there's just kind of less risk involved. And so for us, we were kind of systematically, even though we might not have known it at the time, we were systematically de-risking the idea that retail and kind of stores were going to work for us. And once we had enough data and evidence that this model worked, that's when we kind of stepped on the gas and started scaling.
Got it. So there were just many moments where you weren't quite sure whether the model or whether certain dimensions of the model would pan out, and you were learning in real time. So Laszlo, the next question, and then Veda after Laszlo. Please, Laszlo, your question.
Hi. Thanks so much for speaking, Dave. I really enjoyed hearing about Warby Parker, and as someone that's currently trying to start my own business, I was wondering, in the early stages, how are you able to determine what was your quote unquote A+ talent, and what were you looking for?
Yeah, I think, in any early stage business, and kind of, so the stories into how we got into, physical retail are evidence of this, that, there's so much uncertainty that you really need people who are really creative problem solvers. And so what we looked for then are similar qualities that we look for today. So people who are intensely curious and who are lifelong learners and have kind of have proof points in their history that they've been able to kind of approach new settings and thrive. So they've been able to kind of push themselves outside their comfort zone. They've been able to be great learners, and that they kind of thrive in areas of uncertainty. We also look for people who are proactive. So in any rapidly growing business, you're never going to thrive if you wait for someone to tell you to do something. We really look for people who proactively identify problems to solve and then proactively come with solutions to those problems. And then third is people who are passionate about Warby Parker, people who are passionate about wanting to work for an organization that has a social mission, who are passionate about building a brand, passionate about being at a small, chaotic company where we were not going to have clear roadmap for how they were going to get their next promotion or what their next title was going to be, but that there was going to be kind of some creative chaos, and if they could thrive in that type of environment. That's kind of the types of people that we were looking for then, and I think we have a little less chaos now, but still look for people with similar qualities, and again, really try to probe on people's past, where they might be coming from an extremely different environment, but just look for proof points that they've been able to thrive in similar situations previously.
Thank you so much. You touched on so many great points. I appreciate it.
Yeah, super question, super answer. I think those kind of three elements, just real quickly, intensely curious was the phrase you used. And then in its application, they thrive in new settings or areas of uncertainty. That is fundamental. And we all know people that are really good and really smart that maybe aren't well described by that, right? So it's not just It's not just the same as intelligence. Proactive, the word entrepreneurial, proactive, enterprising, these are all fun, but it's noticeable, right? You see the white space around it and naturally fill it, as opposed to, no, my job's here, I do my job kind of a thing. And then the passionate about the mission and the brand and other elements, really helpful for us to kind of calibrate how you build a people team. Over to you, Veda.
Hello, sorry my camera isn't working right now. I'm not sure what's up with that. But first of all, thanks so much for answering my earlier question about pivots. That was really, really insightful to hear about how you changed the way you sold from online to in person. And then my favorite thing, the home try-on, which I've actually tried before, and it was a super great experience. I was curious about how your company listens to the authentic voice of customers, because as someone pursuing data science, do you go the analytic route and just crunch numbers from like sales and supply planning and inventory to find out what people are looking for and like looking at macro industry-wide trends? Or do you traditionally rely on like normal user research methods, like doing interviews with people and making these storyboards and journey maps for how customers interact with your brand? What kinds of methods do you use?
Yeah, so we spend as much time as possible getting feedback from our customers, and I think one of the primary lessons I took away from my time at Bain was that businesses who are intensely customer focused outperform over the long run. And one of the partners at Bain invented this metric called Net Promoter Score, which is kind of a simple measure around customer satisfaction. And so from day one, we've surveyed every single one of our customers. If you've ever bought anything from Warby Parker, you've gotten a Net Promoter Score survey. And it's something that we kind of use religiously to understand how well we're serving our customers. We slice it by store that a customer was in, type of product that they're buying, where they are in the country, if they talk to a customer service employee or not, and we just kind of use that feedback as an early kind of warning signal if something is not going well. We're proud that our NPS has been in the 80s since we've launched, and that compares to the overall Net Promoter Score for the optical industry is 27, which is the same as the airline industry. And so we fundamentally believe that treating our customers well is a competitive advantage, and one that we want to continue to exploit. And so we do have a lot of data that we track, but I'd say what's more important is kind of the qualitative feedback that we get from customers. And so every one of those Net Promoter Score surveys, people submit a numerical score, but then we also have a free response box that people can kind of write in any thoughts they have about their experience. And our team kind of pores over all the feedback that we get from those customers. We have a consumer insights team that also does focus groups, and kind of as we're launching new products, as we're going into new geographies, as we're thinking about new features, we spend a lot of time getting feedback, understanding what's intuitive, what's not, and especially if we're building things that haven't been built before. So, a good example is we developed a telemedicine app called Virtual Vision Test, where you can download this app, do a vision test from home. An ophthalmologist who's licensed in your state can write you a prescription remotely. And this is kind of a novel experience that people are not used to doing. And we had probably hundreds, I'm guessing actually probably thousands of people kind of go through various iterations of that user experience to understand how can we create something that's trustworthy, but also kind of has the right elements from a UX UI standpoint for a very wide range of users who have various levels of tech savviness. So a long-winded way of saying that we are extremely customer focused and yeah, use both quantitative and qualitative methods to try to get as much feedback as possible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that question too. It's also, going back to your Starbucks example, it's like, we have this jargon word, ethnographic research, right? Day in the life research. It's like, get out there among the people you want to serve and connect with them. And, customer discovery is another jargon phrase in entrepreneurship, but the idea is get out of the building, talk to potential customers. So
yeah,
many.
I guess another example of that is that to this day, we have a showroom in our headquarters. We have 2 eye doctors there serving patients all day. We have customers coming in to try on glasses, and that gives our team an opportunity to take shifts in that store. I think I'm scheduled for a shift next week. And really just kind of reminding people, regardless of whether they're on our accounting team, supply chain team, eyewear design, who we're serving and kind of the challenges that our customers are going through. I want to make sure that that's top of mind for everyone on the team.
Love it. So accounting team members are getting a chance to have that experience too.
Absolutely.
Outstanding. So Sukriti, I think you were going to ask Chawan's question for us. Thank you.
Correct. Yeah. So Chawan can't be now, but how many times purchase glasses on average, and how
Sukriti, we
increase the
can't hear
retention
you. Can everybody hear?
Yeah, it's a little bit jumbled, but I think I can see the question. So maybe
Yes.
I'll repeat the question. Sorry about that. But how many times do customers purchase glasses on average? How can you increase the retention rate?
So across the US, most people buy a new pair of glasses every 2.2 years. And we found that our customers buy much more frequently than that. I think part of it is just the price point. So if a pair of glasses costs $500 or $600, most people can only afford to buy one pair. And so they tend to buy something that's relatively conservative that they can wear with any outfit for any occasion. At $95, we believe that people can start to think of glasses more as fashion accessories and use them more for self-expression and can buy multiple pairs and use them for different reasons. And we have seen that, and our kind of average units per transaction continues to increase every year. And so we're finding that more and more of our customers are buying multiple products from us. Now we don't necessarily kind of want to kind of drive people into unnatural behavior. We've never been kind of too. We don't want to have our customers feel pressured to kind of increase their basket size and kind of resort to similar methodology that some of our peers do. But recently we have been, in addition to glasses, educating our customers that we have lots of other new products and services for them. So now that we have eye doctors in really all of our stores, we have a telemedicine app. We offer glasses and sunglasses, and also offer contact lenses that historically those customers that had gone to a non-Warby Parker doctor to get their exam have to have the awkward conversation with them about why they're not buying glasses from them. Come to one of our stores or our website, buy glasses from us, and then go somewhere else to buy contact lenses. Now they can do all those things within the world of Warby Parker. And so we are finding that a much higher percentage of our customers are now kind of shopping in multiple categories of products from us.
Thanks for that. So there are 3 quick questions, but they'll have to be quick because we have 9 minutes left or something like that. So I will turn it over to Albert, and then Vala, and then Derek's question.
All right. Yeah. Hi, Dave. My question for you is that I wanted to know, how did you guys get first started on the initial advertising for Warby Parker? So you mentioned that you guys had some magazine features in GQ and some other places, but how did that first happen? And what were some other methods that you guys used, like online advertising or word of mouth, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we actually, in our first 3 years in business, we didn't spend a penny on customer acquisition. We were really just trying to keep up with demand. And when we kind of founded the business, between the four of us, we invested kind of our savings from having worked a few years. So in total was $120,000. Most of that went to buy inventory. Some of it went to a couple developers to build our website, since none of us knew how to code. And then the last piece was we hired a fashion PR firm. We thought it was critically important to get credibility from a fashion design standpoint, and get into places like GQ and Vogue to establish credibility from for our glasses designs. Ultimately, while glasses help you see, they are a fashion accessory. They're one of the only things that people wear on their face, and how they look and the design is incredibly important. And so we wanted to kind of establish that credibility. I think we underestimated how powerful that PR can be. So GQ called us the Netflix of eyewear, focused on this home try-on program. And they had this giant 2-page spread with our glasses next to that were $95 next to Tom Ford that cost $400 plus lenses, Bottega Veneta that were $500 plus lenses, and I forget what the other brand was. And ours happened to look the best, just kind of the way that the photography was shot. Vogue also had this amazing article, and that just kind of led to additional press that we really took advantage of. Another kind of early press hit, the New York Times kind of wrote their first article about us. We were about a year old, and we had just read this Reddit article. Someone had figured out how the kind of most emailed articles, kind of the formula for how the New York Times kind of established that, and realized there was the number of unique email addresses that kind of registered and sent that article to at least one person. And so we had all of our team and all of our family members register. And it was the day that Steve Jobs, the news came out that he had cancer, and our article was above that. It was kind of the number one most read article in the New York Times, and stayed that way for a couple weeks. And so we really just kind of tried to take advantage again of these fortuitous opportunities and amplify that. And then really relied on word of mouth, and really tried to focus as much as possible to make sure that every single one of our customers had an amazing experience that they want to tell other people about. And to this day, word of mouth is still the number one way that people hear about Warby Parker.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, super question. Over to you, Vala, and then we will finish up with Derek's question.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Vala. I'm a senior studying business administration at Haas. And my question for you is, well, I couldn't help but notice the bookshelf behind both you and Rich. So I was wondering, do you guys have any book recommendations that you feel like helped shape your success?
A couple kind of fun entrepreneurial stories. One is Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight's book, just about kind of how he built Nike, which is just like a really awesome read. And another one called The Fish That Ate the Whale, about this Sam the Banana Man, who kind of grew up penniless, and ended up building kind of the biggest banana company in the world. It's just really fascinating entrepreneurial story.
Yeah, great. Just a quick one for me. I'm an economist. I'm not a leadership person, but Good to Great was a book that when I read it, I thought, oh, that was very helpful to me. Even though I teach in a business school, it was very helpful to read that. Thanks for that question. Yeah, Vala, appreciate that. So Derek's question, I'm not sure we have Derek online to ask it, so I may go ahead and ask it unless, yeah. So, oh, he is on. Great. Or no, I don't see him on. I'm going to go ahead and ask it because we only have a couple minutes left. It is a good concluding question. As soon to be, well, first of all, Derek says, thank you for speaking with us. Really interesting. So lots of plaudits here. As soon to be graduates, do you have any advice for entering a tough job market and economy? We'll close with that question. Oh, Derek is on. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd say especially early on in your career, really kind of optimize for, well, yeah, I'd say maybe three things. So one, optimize for learning. So put yourself in situations where you're going to have the opportunity to kind of really throw yourself into areas that you're curious about, and you have opportunities just to learn and build a knowledge base. Number two is find great mentors that you should really. It's amazing how accelerated your learning can be if you work for someone or a group of people who are really invested in your development. And then third is to kind of find something that has impact. And again, if you're going to be spending all of your time on something, make sure that it's something that you're going to feel good about. It's going to motivate you. It's going to create more opportunity down the road.
Thank you very much.
Good question, Derek. Thank you for that. Sorry, I didn't let you ask it. But all those three things, if followed, map pretty nicely into the hiring principles that he laid out for Warby Parker, right? So I mean, it's not surprising that they align well, but I think that's fundamental. Just one quick point for me, and then I'll turn it back to Vicky. And that is, mentors. Look, there are lots of people that coach and mentor us, and I remember one of the most positive things that anybody can say about you in a job situation is they are coachable. They are coachable. That one phrase from somebody they trust could get you a job. And I think it links beautifully to what Dave just said. Also, mentoring and sponsors. There's also a higher level. I remember one of my direct reports said, well, there's mentoring and there's sponsoring. And sponsoring is like, you're kind of out there providing opportunities for me. And she actually asked me this, are you comfortable actually playing the sponsor role for me? And she was in a leadership development program that basically prompted her to have that conversation with me as her boss. And I was very happy to play that role. And the next time a potential opportunity came up for her, I realized I'm not just a mentor anymore, I'm a sponsor. So actually having that conversation with people is very, very helpful. And it's not easy to have it, I know, but have it. Consistent with what Dave just said. Dave, you are amazing. Warby Parker is amazing. We are proud of you as a fellow alum. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Excited
Thank
to be
you.
here.
Thank you both. Go Bears. I'm going to share my screen, which is our code. And if you remember from doing this in the past, because Dave is actually a rare repeat speaker, we'll have lots of feedback for you both tomorrow, hopefully by tomorrow. Wishing you a great evening. Not only are you early, but we're actually finished 1 minute early. So if I can give you that time back, well, not quite now, it's 6:30. Wishing you all the best. I'll stay on if there are any questions from any of the students, or if you have any questions, Rich or Dave.
Great. Thanks all.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to my next pair. And I'm just going to stay on. You all are welcome to drop off. I'm going to see if we have any questions from students. Everybody says thank you. I don't know if you all are following the chat.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Wishing everybody a wonderful evening. And boy, Zach Moore, you got that in at the last second. I will ask, Dave, is there any way that if somebody wanted to contact you, you'd feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, people can just reach out, just Dave at Warby Parker.
As I always say, a founder wants to be found.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dave, if I can be helpful to you in any way, you know I'm here, okay?
Awesome. Thank you. This was fun. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
And hope to be back on campus soon.
We'd be happy to host you, welcome you, whatever we can do. Have a good night, everyone. I am actually going to stop the recording and wish everybody all the best. And next week we have our final Newton series, you guys, with Lee Steinberg. I don't know if that name is familiar. He's also Cal grad. I guess he was the I don't know how to say it. The impetus for Jerry Maguire, if you know that movie.
Yeah.
He's quite a character. Wishing you all a very good night, and thank you both for your time. This is fantastic.
Bye
Thank
all.
you.
Cheers.